Carolyn Leavitt isn't just struggling at her job, she's actively undermining the very idea of honesty. Right now, she's clearly in panic mode. Everywhere she and Donald Trump turn, the problems keep piling up. From a government shutdown, he can't seem to manage to growing signs of strain in the economy. It's all catching up fast. And then there's the renewed spotlight on the Epstein files, which has only added to the pressure. When the spin stopped working today, Leavitt did what she always does. She ran. After being called out for spreading multiple false claims about the shutdown and other controversies, she simply walked off. We'll get into what exactly happened and why it matters. But before we do, if you appreciate our independent coverage, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It really helps support our work. Now, let's start with one of the most misleading claims Carolyn Leavitt made today. This one involving the upcoming layoffs tied to Trump administration policies.
On the layoff of federal workers, potentially, the president said yesterday that Democrats will be to blame if federal workers lose their jobs. Historically, though, in past shutdowns, workers have been furloughed, but they have not been laid off en masse. So wouldn't that be the president's call to lay people off?
As I've said repeatedly, Caitlin, this conversation about layoffs would not be happening right now if the Democrats did not vote to shut the government down. And as I also said last briefing as well, we are $37 trillion in debt, and the government is not receiving any cash. So someone has to look at the balance sheet and be good stewards of the American taxpayer dollar. And layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of that.
First term, for example.
Well, as I'm telling you now, this administration is focusing on checking the balance sheet and ensuring we're doing the right thing by the American taxpayer. And again, these conversations about layoffs would not be happening in the White House today if not for the Democrat shutdown. And they have a choice to change that. They have another opportunity tonight to do the right thing to reopen the government. Joey.
This is the same man who's been posting AI-generated videos, images, and messages bragging about how excited he is to fire people. He's literally calling himself and Russ Vought the Grim Reapers, and somehow spinning that as a good thing. And now we're supposed to believe Democrats are the ones to blame for the mass layoffs that are about to happen. Come on. I keep coming back to this because it matters. We saw this coming. You and I warned people about Project 2025, but too many chose to ignore it. Russ Vought, one of its main architects, openly said he wanted to traumatize federal workers. That's not speculation. It's documented. So let's stop pretending Trump and his team can pin this on Democrats. It's simply false. And now, they're trying to argue that divisive rhetoric is the Democrats' fault, even as Carolyn Leavitt herself fuels the same hostility with her latest comments, pushing a toxic narrative that only makes the situation worse.
Sorry, my second question. A federal judge over the weekend that the president had appointed to the bench in his first term in office basically argued that he could not deploy other states' National Guards to Portland, basically said that it was untethered, his argument, to what is actually happening on the ground. Which local officials in Portland have said that the National Guard is needed there?
With all due respect to that judge, I think her opinion is untethered in reality and in the law. The president is using his authority as Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Code 12406, which clearly states that the president has the right to call up the National Guard in cases where he deems it's appropriate. And if you look at what has happened in Portland, Oregon, for more than 100 nights, I was talking to our law enforcement team about it this morning, for more than 100 days, night after night after night, the ICE facility has been really under siege by these anarchists outside. They have been disrespecting law enforcement. They've been inciting violence. We saw, again, a guillotine rolled out in front of this federal building. And so
we just witnessed something truly alarming. A judge's home was set on fire after weeks of rising threats and inflammatory rhetoric. And let's be honest, this kind of dangerous talk has been fueled directly by Donald Trump, who's been labeling judges anti-American and accusing them of blocking his supposed mission to save the country. Words like that have real-world consequences, and now we're seeing them. What makes this even more disturbing is that Carolyn Leavitt is still doubling down on that same narrative, just one day after what appears to be an arson attack on a judge who ruled against Trump and their family. Yet somehow, we're expected to believe Democrats are the ones inflaming tensions? That our rhetoric is the real problem? Give me a break. Meanwhile, Leavitt continues to push false and reckless claims, including her latest about Portland. It's not just dishonest, it's dangerous, and it's putting real people at risk.
We need the National Guard, because I spoke to the police chief of Portland last week. He said that the president's claims just don't match up with what's happening on the ground.
I would encourage you as a reporter to go on the ground and to take a look at it for yourself, because there's been many members of the press, not press in this room, but independent journalists, some of whom we'll be inviting to the White House very soon to share their stories, because they have been in the middle of these riots and they have witnessed the anarchy that is taking place night after night. It's on video. You should play it on your show. You have a great opportunity on prime time on CNN to show your audience. Yeah, but you're probably talking to partisan Democrat officials who are opposed to everything this president does. You should also ask the people who live in Portland. We've actually heard from many members of the community who have said that this is complete civil disobedience. It's a mess. It's been loud. It's been troubling for neighbors in the community who are just trying to live peacefully. And these people are not there to peacefully protest. They are there to cause mayhem and havoc.
Yeah, Caroline.
Stephen, go ahead.
The reality is, the only images coming out of Portland lately are of people casually walking through farmers' markets, grabbing coffee and muffins, not the chaos some are desperate to portray. Yet, certain media outlets keep pushing this overblown story that it's one of the most dangerous cities in America. At this point, the narrative has become ridiculous. We've even seen confusing and disorganized law enforcement activity. Scenes that don't fit within the norms of a healthy democracy. Even more troubling are reports that some of those involved have ties to extremist groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Individuals known for violence and hate. That's what's truly dangerous, the growing sense that political loyalty is being prioritized over public service. And it's no surprise that Carolyn Leavitt cut her press conference short today, walking away the moment real questions started coming her way.
The president has said he wants the government to reopen this week in a deal. What's going to happen by the end of the week if there's no deal? What's the White House prepared to do?
With no deal with what?
To reopen the government.
Look, as I said, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of pain inflicted. There already is on the American public, on our troops who are not being paid, again, on women and young children who depend on critical food assistance. We hate to see this. And in fact, the Office of Management and Budget is trying to do everything they can to find funds to get out the door for these vulnerable populations in our country. Again, we shouldn't be having to do that. The Democrats have a chance to change course tonight. I believe the vote's taking place at 6:30, and we urge Democrat senators to vote to reopen the government and to do the right thing. Thanks, guys.
She'd rather walk away than face the truth and do her job. Because this government shutdown is entirely a product of Republican leadership, driven by one issue: slashing health care. Democrats made a simple, reasonable request: reverse the proposed Medicaid cuts and extend Affordable Care Act tax credits so over 20 million Americans don't face soaring premiums and medical bills. But Republicans refuse, insisting instead on some of the biggest Medicaid reductions in history to fund even more tax breaks for billionaires and major corporations. To get their way, they shut down the government, holding essential services hostage while still trying to blame Democrats. But the public isn't fooled. A new Wall Street Journal poll shows voters blaming Republicans for the shutdown by a 17-point margin. The spin isn't working anymore. While Democrats continue working toward solutions, Republican leadership is doing the opposite. Speaker Mike Johnson has canceled votes, and Donald Trump is golfing instead of governing. This is what leadership under Republican control looks like. Zero accountability, while everyday Americans bear the cost.
People to call their Democratic senators. Is the president calling Democratic senators himself? Can you say what he's doing
today to resolve the shutdown?
Yep, I was just in the Oval Office. He was on the phone with Speaker Johnson. He's also spoken with the Senate Majority Leader, who are in touch with, of course, moderate Democrats and Democrats across the board, who we understand hopefully want to do the right thing by their constituents to reopen the government. So the president is being kept very well apprised of the ongoing shutdown on Capitol Hill. And of course, his position is very clear. There's nothing to negotiate, just reopen the government, and then we can talk about all the important issues facing our country.
So he hasn't called specific members of Congress?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And then on the Affordable Care Act.
Donald Trump won't even bother to make a call to help end the government shutdown because, let's be honest, he doesn't want to fix it. This was the plan all along, to pressure and demoralize federal workers while paving the way for massive tax cuts for billionaires and major donors. That's always been the real priority, not reopening the government or helping everyday Americans, but protecting the wealthiest few. And it goes deeper than that. It's not just about money. It's about shielding those same powerful figures from accountability. When Carolyn Leavitt was pressed about the latest revelations tied to the Epstein case, she refused to answer. No explanation, no transparency, just another attempt to dodge responsibility.
I was going to you in the blue shirt and tie.
Oh, thank you,
Yes,
Caroline.
you're
I'll
welcome.
go to the Daily Mail. Today, the Supreme Court declined to hear Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal. Will Trump rule out granting her clemency? Is that something the White House is considering?
It's not something I've heard discussed, and we don't comment on clemency requests that may or may not have been made, but I'm certainly not tracking that one at this point in time.
Oh, we're not going to comment on clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell, they say. Yet Donald Trump's only response has basically been, I can if I want to. And of course, he'd say that because protecting himself has always been his top priority. If that means cutting deals or extending favors to controversial figures, he's proven he's willing to do it. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans are watching their healthcare costs skyrocket, in some cases doubling or tripling, while still getting less coverage. In the wealthiest nation on earth, people are being priced out of basic care. And yet, these so-called patriots who claim to love America refuse to invest in its people. If we truly are the richest country in the world, making sure everyone has access to affordable health care shouldn't be controversial. It should be common sense. Healthcare isn't a partisan issue or a talking point. It's a fundamental human right. But while millions struggle, Donald Trump and his allies remain focused on everything except solving that crisis. Just listen to what Carolyn Leavitt said next.
And then on the Affordable Care Act, is he willing to share more on what he'd like to negotiate on the Affordable Care Act later? Is he willing to say specifically what he would like and when?
Look, the president is definitely committed to fixing and improving our healthcare system. You saw it again last week when he had one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world coming into the Oval Office and promising to lower drug prices by 200, 300, 100% in many cases for various types of drugs for American patients. That is a huge fix to a broken system that has been ripping off the American people for far too long. So the president's very committed to this. But right now, we need to reopen the federal government, and the president is remaining very firm in that position.
This is exactly how hard we have to push back, by calling out misinformation and standing up for the truth every single day. And we're going to keep doing that right here on this show. If you want to support that mission, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.